Director of the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center at the Consulate General of India in Durban, Dr. Chaitanya Prakash, Yogi Pandit Dhanshankar Maharaj, Mr. Rajesh Lachman, Ms. Yudhisha Balikaran, Mr. CPM Chunu, Mr. Piyush Khandalwal, distinguished guests, online viewers and listeners, Namaskar and welcome to the fourth episode of Aarshdhara. Aarshdhara is a series of interactions on scriptures composed by ancient sages of India, with today covering the Isha Vasya of the Upanishads. To commence today's program, I would like to welcome Mr. Rajesh Lachman, the COO of Himwani Radio, for this evening's introductory remarks. This program is in association with the Hindi Siksha Sangh of South Africa. Namaste and welcome, Mr. Rajesh Lachman.
सभी को मेरा प्रणाम। डॉक्टर चैतन्य प्रकाश प्रभु जी नमस्ते। अपना पंडित जी धनशंकर महाराज जी नमस्ते, युधिशा जी, सृष्टि जी और हमारे ख़ास दोस्त जो हमारे साथ बैठे हैं और हमारा हर तैयारियाँ कर रहे हैं, आपको भी पीयूष जी मेरा प्रणाम और संपीवे जी नमस्कार। We are indeed very delighted to be part of this program, Aarshdhara, with the Consul General of India as well as the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center. Today, as we introspect and look at the Isha Vasya Upanishad and we look at the circumstances we find ourselves in, I think as a community, as a nation, South Africa needs to do some deep introspection. And introspection needs to come not only from the fact that we are such a divided and such a society that has so many different levels, both from a social perspective as well from a political perspective. But there's a time now for us as one nation for us to look at what it is we can do to start rebuilding. And often when one is in such a situation, what happens? One looks to our scriptures for guidance. One looks to the wisdom through the ages, whether it is the Bible, whether it's the Quran, whether it's our Vedas or the Upanishads. We look to them for guidance. And I'm hoping that today's discourse is going to be a catalyst for that introspection for all of us. Not only those of us listening, not only those of us who are involved in the program, but hopefully that energy will also go out to others who are not directly involved. Because today, and this week, South Africa is mourning the loss of so many people, mourning what is now referred to as almost a complete economic collapse, where there's going to be food shortages, etc. The whole scenario is frightening, to say the least. And I'm hoping that as we traverse through our scriptures and hopefully the Isha Vasya Upanishad, hopefully we'll find some answers, even if it's just philosophical, for us to understand why all this is happening. Having said so, thank you so much, Pandit Ji, for agreeing to be part of this. Thank you so much, Dr. Chaitanya Prakash, Yogi Ji. मैं आपको प्रभु पर बुलाया है क्योंकि मैं आपको पता है कि ये मेरे शब्द प्यार से मैं हर लोग को प्रभु या बाबू कहता हूँ, तो माफ कीजिए, मैं ये आदत है मेरा. So thank you so much to all of you for your time. I'm looking forward to your engagement, Yudhisha, and I'm convinced, knowing what I know of Pandit Ji, we're going to have a really interesting discourse. Thank you and namaste.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rajesh Lachman, for those very insightful introductory remarks. I'd like to invite Pandit Dhanshankar Maharaj Ji, who is going to be interacting interacting by Ms. Yudhisha Balikaran, who is the journalist and radio presenter. And today's topic is Isha Vasya Upanishad. Just a brief background on Panditji. Panditji is a Pandit, a Hindu priest from the year 1960 to date, an educator for 21 years, lieutenant colonel in SAPS for 12 and a half years, as Hindu chaplain, 3 years of which he was the head of chaplain services in KwaZulu-Natal. Panditji holds qualifications in a BA Law, BA Honours in Science of Religion, postgraduate diploma in counseling, and secondary teachers diploma. Namaste and welcome, Pandit Dhanshankar Maharaj Ji and Miss Yudhisha Palikaran Ji.
My loving namaskar to each and every one of you. Thank you so much for that introduction, Shrishti Ji. And yes, once again, my hearty namaskar to each and every one of you, including our listeners and our viewers this evening. It gives me absolute pleasure to interact with our revered Panditji. Panditji, namaskar to you. I've had the pleasure. Namaskar. I've actually had the pleasure of interacting with Panditji once before as well. It was at one of the youth camps held by the Vishwa Hindu Parishad many, many years ago in the Drakensberg. And Panditji was one of the chief speakers at that youth retreat. So it gives me great honor to once again interact with you, Panditji. Now, regarding the Isha Vasya Upanishad, can you kindly give us a simple and brief introduction of this particular Upanishad, Panditji?
Sure. Thank you and namaskar to all of you. And thank you for having me here. The Isha Upanishad is a major Upanishad, but major only because Adi Shankaracharya commented on it. You know, we have 108 Upanishads. And of the 108 Upanishads, 10 were chosen by Adi Shankaracharya to comment on. And that is why we will regard the Isha Upanishad as major. It forms the Isha Upanishad, we have 4 Vedas. And at the end of each Ved, there is an Upanishad, not necessarily at the end. For example, the Isha Upanishad doesn't come at the end of the Vedas. It comes somewhere in the mantra portion of the Vedas. And of course, that's interesting that the Isha Upanishad should be in the mantra portion of the Vedas. But the Isha Upanishad, like all our Upanishads, we refer to them as Vedanta. And the word Vedanta means final knowledge. Although it means end of the Vedas, Veda plus Anta. So it means end, Veda, Anta, end of the Vedas. But what it really means is, it is the final knowledge or the highest knowledge. And the Isha Upanishad, like all the Upanishads then, has as its main goal to bring to the attention of all individuals, all human beings, because of Upanishads are addressed to humanity, that you and the supreme reality are one and the same. To loosen your bond with this world, so that you may be able to rise to higher levels of consciousness. Of course, that is one of the meanings of the word Upanishad. The word Upanishad means sitting near a teacher and deriving or getting from the teacher that Gyan, that Brahma Vidya, which will help you to sever your bonds with this world of name and form and rise to the nameless and formless one, which we call Brahman. And the Isha Upanishad then has that as its goal, as I said, like all the Upanishads do. But coming down specifically to the Isha Upanishad, the Isha Upanishad starts off with, as the name Isha, Isha Vasya Sarvam, the first mantra of the Isha Upanishad is to tell us that, if you really want to enjoy life, then you must detach. And you just need to think a little bit, and you will realize that when you are attached, you are not enjoying life, because then you are living in fear and anxiety. And where there is fear and anxiety, you can't have enjoyment. I mean, how does one say, I am really enjoying, but I'm scared? So you can't. So that is one of the things, one of the lessons you pick up from Isha Upanishad. Detach and enjoy. But we'll look at that in greater detail later on. Then the Isha Upanishad also gives you, that you may regard as the path of jnana, where you realize that I need to detach myself from this world of name and form and focus on the self within. But not all of us are capable of that. So the Isha Upanishad then also recommends the path of action. And the path of action then can lead to self-purification, chitta shuddhi, purification of the mind, so that once again, finally you can become a recipient of Brahma Vidya. And another message that comes through very clearly from the Isha Upanishad is that if you do not follow either the path of renunciation or the path of karma yoga or jnana yoga, then you are courting disaster. So that comes like a warning from the Isha Upanishad. Then we also have the Isha Upanishad then also brings to our attention very strongly that your goal in life is self-realization. Make anything else the goal of your life, and pain and suffering, confusion and turmoil and strife will be your lot. So it presents to you what should be your goal and what your life would be like on attaining the goal. In other words, how does a Brahmagyani live in this world? A Brahmagyani doesn't leave the world, he lives in the world, but he lives differently from a person who lives in avidya, in a state of ignorance, to the one who lives with this divine supreme knowledge. Then we also have, and this is also very interesting, a beautiful synthesis of karma and jnana in this Upanishad, where you can be a jnani but yet engaged in activity. Here I can think of a bird. A bird always flies on both its wings. So you are not only a jnani, but you are a karma yogi and a jnani, because you have many jnanis who are also karma yogis. They are dynamically engaged in the world, and yet deep down within themselves they know Naham Karta. See? And then you also have in the Isha Upanishad an exhortation to humanity to take to spiritual life. The only valid way of living is to live spiritually. Whether you know it or not, whether you know it or not, you are on a spiritual journey. How much better it would be if you knew that you are on a spiritual journey, you would live differently. And then finally, in the last mantra, the 18th mantra, you see a prayer so beautiful, Om Agnenai Subhadharaya Sman, where the Guru and the disciple make an appeal to the Supreme Being, in this case as Agni Dev, to guide and protect and take both Guru and disciple towards the highest knowledge. So that I've just given you a very quick summary of what the Isha Upanishad sets out to do.
Very interesting indeed, Panditji. You've almost inadvertently answered my next question. I know you've highlighted on detachment as being a crucial focus of the Isha Vasya Upanishad. You've spoken about renunciation, about self-realization, as well as karma and jnana yoga. But is there anything that you would also like to add as to why the Isha Vasya Upanishad is considered an important scripture? During your research of this particular Upanishad, have you found anything about it that indicates the importance of the scripture during your academic study?
Yudhisha, the clarion call of this Upanishad is, and that is all that one needs to do, change your vision. The Upanishad doesn't do anything, it just asks you to change your vision. From seeing yourself as an individual, separated from the whole, that is where the problem is. It's like the wave in the ocean thinks, I am the wave and the ocean is separate from me. You see yourself as part of the whole. And when you see yourself as part of this whole, then you live differently. You see, when I see myself as separate, then there's isolation, there is separation, there is, and wherever there is isolation and separation, conflict will be there. It's natural to people who see themselves as individuals. So I am part of the whole. The Isha Upanishad, that very first name, Isha, means the Supreme Being, the Supreme Lord, Paramatma. So I just need to change the way I see myself in relation to the whole. The oft quoted, know thyself. Even on the Greeks, I think on the Oracle of Delphi, it's written there, know thyself and be free. When you don't know yourself, you live in bondage. So this scripture is considered as important because it helps you to come to the realization you are not disconnected from your fellow human beings. But it's not only human beings, Yudhisha. I'm connected to the plants. I'm connected to the animals. I'm connected to the sun and the moon and the stars. Now, you know what happens when you see this connection? You live differently. Now there's no exploitation. I don't have to exploit because we are all one. I will not go around chopping trees because I'm connected to the tree. So this is what, know thyself and be free. Be free of what? Be free of your separate existence, which creates fear. You know, when there is one, where is the fear? Fear only arises when there's more than one. Conflict arises only when there's more than one. But if there is only one, whom am I to fear? And this is the message that comes through so strongly in the Isha Upanishad. All this is Paramatma. Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam. If I were to Isha Vasyam Idagum Sarvam Yat Kinchit Jagatyam Jagat. Right? Everything in this world, the moving and the unmoving Charachar, is all Paramatma. Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma. Another line that comes from the Upanishads. When we begin to see everything in and as Paramatma, then this problem that Rajesh had spoken about earlier on, that comes to an end. Because now I'm not hating anybody, I'm not going to fight with anybody. There is no greed. So all this that we are experiencing, not only in South Africa, you and I know that this problem is a universal problem, where each country is protecting their own nation, my property, my language, my religion. Vedanta, the beauty of Vedanta, the beauty of the Upanishad, it's not a religion. It takes you beyond religion. That is why the Upanishad is what the world should be looking at to put an end to the problems of the world. Because here we are not talking about a religion or a prophet. We're not talking about a God sitting in the sky. We're talking about you as a person. This is the beauty of the Upanishad. You are important. Get your thinking right and see what happens when your thinking comes right. When your vision changes, you come to the realization, we are all one. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. This world is a family. So this Isha Upanishad, this is why I would say it is one of, although it comes as number one, but that's only because, when we talk about the Upanishad, we say Isha and then we give all the other Upanishads, not because it is number one. So if I were to again say that, what we have done is we've taken God and put God into an institution. We've institutionalized God. Each religion got their own God. Each community got their own God. We all got our own gods, and all these gods are disconnected. But what do the Vedas say? Ekam Sat. Ekam Sat. Viprabhuda Vadanti. Is this not the message that should be going out to humanity? That there is only one supreme reality. No matter by what name you call that, there's only one supreme being. Maybe I should very quickly use an analogy here, If you take gold, from gold you can make so many things. You can make a earring, you can make a nose ring, you can make a bracelet. But what is the essence of all that? Is it not gold? So whatever, this entire universe is consciousness. And from that consciousness, whatever comes is consciousness. Name and form. That name and form will disappear. The bracelet can disappear. The earring can disappear, but where does it disappear to? Back into gold. Name and form is temporary, but what has happened to humanity? We are stuck in name and form. Name and form separate. But when you see name and form as being permeated, pervaded, as expressions of consciousness, then there's no difference. Where's the difference? Instead of seeing bracelet and earring and nose ring, I see only gold. And there's nothing wrong if you see them with bracelet and earring and nose ring. But you know that it's all gold. Can we not have, and is this not what the Upanishad is doing? Asking you to change your vision. Instead of seeing separation, see unity. The unity in the diversity. Colors may be different, shapes may be different, language may be different. All these differences are superficial. And do not see them as contradictory. They are complementary. But at the substratum level, at the fundamental level, all are the same. So this message needs to go out very strongly. And I tell you, what we are going through in South Africa and in the world at large is due to this faulty thinking. It's a faulty thinking. Its roots in ignorance.
Thank you for such a beautiful analogy, Panditji. Beautiful explanation there as to why the Isha Vasya Upanishad is considered an important scripture. And I really love that. Change your vision. You know, I was listening to a talk by Dr. Wayne Dyer, and one of the things that really stuck to my mind is if you change the way you look at things, what you are looking at changes. And that is exactly what you've just explained to us. So thank you so much for that. Now, when we look at the essence of the Isha Vasya Upanishad, Panditji, can you explain to us what is special, what is unique and enlightening in this ancient scripture?
Well, I mentioned earlier on that it brings about the beautiful synthesis of jnana and karma. But another very interesting thing, and I alluded to this earlier on, that the Isha Upanishad is found in the Shukla Yajur in the mantra portion. You know, the Vedas have, you got the mantra, the Brahmana, the Aranyaka, and the Upanishads. This is found right in the beginning in the mantra portion. And one wonders why it is in the mantra portion of the Vedas. Maybe one, you know, in the ancient days, the youngsters, the brahmacharis went to the Gurukul. And maybe the Rishi, and you know, we don't know who wrote the Isha Upanishad, like we don't know most of the authors of the Upanishads are unknown. The disciples are unknown. Because these gurus, when they said, get rid of your ego, they meant it, and they practiced it by not putting their name down. Of course, nowadays you'll find people who may write a whole book on how to get rid of your ego, and at the end of it, their name appears. These rishis practiced that. When they said, Tyago, ahankar ko tyago, main thing that you must get rid of, because what separates you from Bhagavan is your ahankar, nothing else. It is only my ego that separates me. Get rid of the ego, and then there is no me, and then there is no you. There is only Bhagavan. So, but coming back to, maybe the Rishi had in mind, I'm just speculating, maybe the Rishi had in mind that these brahmacharis, after reading Isha Upanishad, They will skip Grihastha and Banapras and go straight to sannyas. Because what does the Isha tell you? Everything is Bhagavan. This whole world is pervaded by Paramatma. And then when you realize that if all this is Bhagavan and I am Paramatma, Aham Brahma Asmi, Tattvamasi, these are the Mahavakyas, then renunciation is natural. Renunciation of what? Renunciation of your attachments, renunciation of desires, chasing after the things of the world. What you going to go after? Because you now live in your divine consciousness. Now, here I'm thinking of what happened in the Bhagavad Gita between Krishna and Arjuna. Bhagavan Sri Krishna has been telling Arjuna so many things, so many yogas, so many techniques for realization. But did Arjuna practice any one of those techniques? When he told him you must sit and meditate, you think on the battlefield Arjuna could sit and meditate? Duryodhana would have had an easy opportunity to get rid of him. Nothing Arjuna did. Nothing. He did one thing. He listened with devotion. He listened with attention. And that is what is missing. Do you know just by listening with your entire being, you can become an enlightened being? Just by listening. Where when the Guru talks, it doesn't just go, it goes straight to your heart. It goes straight to where it should go. And then there is no need for time. Enlightenment can be instantaneous. The clicking of a finger, the twinkling of an eye, enlightenment can take place. At the end of the Gita, see, Arjuna didn't do it. I don't know. Although Bhagavan Sri Krishna spoke about so many things, dana, tapa, yajna, Arjuna did nothing. Nothing he did. But at the end of the Gita, what does Arjuna say? Nashto moha, my delusion is gone. What got rid of his delusion? Just listening with total attention, asking questions, clarifying. This is the beauty of Vedanta. What was Vedanta? Vedanta is where the student and the teacher engage in a samvad. They engage in a discussion, free and fearless. When you can ask questions without knowing, without thinking that you're going to upset your teacher. The disciple, the seeker asked fearlessly. It is only when you are afraid of being exposed that you don't like questions being asked. Here there is no thing as believe. There is not a belief. Vedanta is not a belief system. Therefore, it encourages you to question, and to question from every angle. Pariprashnena. In the Gita, that expression. Pariprashnena, question from every angle. Because the truth is not afraid. So, therefore, Arjuna at the end, having listened carefully, having asked questions, having all his doubts clarified, he says, Nashto moha my delusion is gone. And when your delusion is gone, you now know how to act in this world. Karishye vachanam tava. Karishye vachanam tava. I will now do what you say. And who is Krishna? Krishna is not the son of Vasudeva and Devaki. Krishna is your own divine self that appeared in Dwapar Yuga as the son of Vasudeva and Devaki in a form. The formless appeared as the form. Just as, in fact, all of us, friends, all of us are waves in the ocean of consciousness. Realize that you are just a wave in the ocean of consciousness. You and the ocean are the same. But when you see yourself as separate, that is where the dukh starts. So this, what else makes, I said it talks about karma and jnana, but Isha Upanishad also talks about nirgun and sagun Brahma. This is forever, I'm just alluding to that, we are all waves in the ocean of consciousness. This argument has been going on from time immemorial. Is God with form or is God without form? And in Vedanta, the language we use is Nirgun Brahm and Sagun Brahm. Nirgun Brahm means the attributeless and nameless being. Sagun Brahm means with name and with attributes. And Vedanta tells you both are the same. The nameless and formless one becomes with name and form. I'm thinking of what Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa once said. He says, under the cooling influence of, or the love, the cooling influence of the love of the devotee, the nameless and formless one takes on a form. Just as the ocean takes on a form like a glacier. What is the glacier and the ocean? Ocean is formless. The glacier has got a form. What is the difference between the glacier and the ocean? That is the relationship between Nirgun and Sagun Brahm. So whether you worship Bhagavan with form or you worship Bhagavan with form, without form, the goal is the same. So Isha Upanishad brings that out also. Why should there be a conflict between God with form or God without form? So that I was just expanding on what you were saying. Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa, was a jnani. But was he not a mother of devotee of Mother Kali? He had Brahma Gyan. Ramakrishna Paramahansa had that Gyan of Brahma Vidya, of the nameless Nirgun Brahm. But for him, he got his joy came from his devotion to the Divine Mother Kali. Even Adi Shankaracharya, whom, we all know, he is a Jnani par excellence. Right? But he wrote so many beautiful hymns on Shardama that he got his inspiration. He challenged all the whatever he did. Shardama was his inspiration. So these two, if I'm just mentioning two of them, Ramakrishna Paramahansa and Adi Shankaracharya, clear examples of do not separate Nirgun and Sagun Brahma.
Thank you so much for that, Panditji. Very, very interesting indeed. If we had to look from a modern point of view, in our present age, what we're going through in our country, and as you mentioned, around the world as well, can you please guide us about the relevance, the importance of the Isha Vasya Upanishad in our present, in the present, modern context?
Right here, I think I just want to refer to verse 7. Of course, we looked at verse 1, but I will repeat that. Verse 1 says that this entire universe is pervaded by Bhagavan. All this, whatever moves in this universe, including this universe itself, moving, is indwelt or pervaded or enveloped or clothed by Bhagavan. And if you look at verse 7, if I may just find that verse, where Yasmin sarvani bhutani atmaiva bhut vijanatah tatra ko moha kah shoka ekatvam anupashyata. Meaning, I'll just give you the translation of that verse. When to the knower all beings have become one in his own self, how shall he feel deluded thereafter? Now, the question is, how is the Isha Upanishad relevant to us today? Well, if you think about how we are living our lives, an egoic life, egoic means all our actions tend to spring from our ahankar, for me and myself. I mean, who's important? Me and myself. Whenever I am thinking only of myself and me and improving my group, I want to improve only myself and my group and my family. Is that not setting the scene for problems, setting the scene for conflict? So therefore, when you begin to come to this realization of universality, of oneness, and that is what this verse is saying, eh? To see Paramatma everywhere. We see Bhagavan only in the mandir or in the mosque or in the church. And that too, my God is different from your God. Then isn't that setting the scene for conflict? So you've got to take Bhagavan out of the temples and the mosques and the churches. And that is what the Upanishad is saying. Don't institutionalize your God. You've locked him. So you only think of Bhagavan when you're in the church or when you're in the mosque or when you're in the temple. Do you not see Bhagavan in the rising sun? Do you not see Bhagavan in the smile of the child? Do you not see Bhagavan in the tears of the widow? Do you not see Bhagavan in the starving dog? So you see what has happened. We have limited and restricted the all-pervading, limitless Bhagavan. And that is the tragedy of humanity. That is our tragedy. That we have limited the limitless. We have confined the one that cannot be confined, has been confined to a building. So first and foremost, I need to find Paramatma within myself. And this is what the Upanishad is saying. First, you see Paramatma within yourself. And then you will see that that Bhagavan is an all-pervading Paramatma. So that is the main thing. So, you know, we must listen to the messages, read the books, listen to the gurus. But just that is not enough. That Shravana is not enough. It must be for Shravana means listening. It must be followed by Manana. Manana means reflect on what you've heard. Even that is not enough. There must be what we call Nididhyasana. You must go and practice what you go and meditate. And it is in your meditation that you'll come to that realization that we are all one. I've sought thee everywhere, Bhagwan. You know, I'm quoting what one Mahatma said. I sought thee everywhere, Bhagwan. I didn't find you. I looked for you within, and then I found that you are everywhere. So, when I find that or come to that realization that Bhagwan is not only here and there, that Paramatma is everywhere. You live differently. Then it's not, you don't see differences, you only see unity. If not, you know, friends, what happens? I make this world into a heaven. Because really in Vedanta, you know, this thing about a heaven being somewhere else is something that the sooner we give up that kind of thinking, the better. Because human beings, that is what they are doing. They're making a mess of this world because they think there is another place that is better than here. And I would, some people who told me that, I told them, if you think there is a better place than this, why don't you leave today? There is no other place better than here and now. Because we think there's a better place, we're messing up this place. So let's make this place. Because that heaven that anybody is talking about, that's a post-mortem state. Whether there is a place like that or is not there, I don't know. And if you tell me that if I live a certain kind of life here, I'll go to heaven, is it verifiable? Did anybody come back and tell you that there is such a place? And even if you bluffed me, I can't come and catch you and say, you know what, you told me all this nonsense. Now there is no such place. But it is verifiable. Vedanta is telling you it is verifiable. You do 1, 2, 3, and your life here will become heavenly. You will experience the joys of life right here and now. So, you know, you can make your life heavenly or you can make it hell. These are not places, friends. This is a state of mind. Heaven and hell is a state of mind. So I think this message, because you asked, what is the relevance of Isha for today? This is the relevance. Forget all these things that are that you're going to die and go to a heaven. Your heaven and hell is right here.
Thank you so much, Panditji. Certainly, what's coming through here is ahankar, ego, And at the end of the day, it all boils down to that. Now, you have quoted a few verses, and I can see time is running away with us. But would you like to quote or mention a few verses from the Isha Vasya Upanishad as an important message or somewhat of a guidance for our present life?
Well, I can look at because these are the topical verse. The topical verse is the first one. Like you have a topical sentence. In the very beginning, you get the essence of the whole Upanishad is there. So I can quote it again. Om Isha Vasyam Idagum Sarvam Yat Kinchit Jagatyam Jagat Tena Tyaktena Bhunjitha Magridaha Kasya Svidhanam. Which means that this entire world is pervaded by Bhagavan. And, you have this renunciation of desires, renunciation of your ego, and all that happens naturally when you realize that this whole world is divinity. And we said earlier on, if this is not possible, then you've got the way you work in this world, because not all of us can live as jnanis. Not all of us have come to that realization that there is only Bhagavan. So, the second method that is recommended by the rishis, our spiritual scientists, and they are spiritual scientists because they are not talking from theoretical knowledge. A scientist is one who has validated his theory in practice. And the rishis found that when you engage in dynamic activity for the well-being of all, it leads to self-purification. Selfless service. See, all of us have to act in this world. Nobody in this world can remain even for one moment without being active. But when you start doing your activities as an act of worship, then that act of yours can also lead to chitta shuddhi, to self-purification. How beautiful that is, that instead of just sitting in the Himalayan mountains or sitting in a cave and in meditation, you come out and you work in the world, seeing Bhagavan in all. You do your activities now as an act of worship without attachment to the fruits of action. Karma phala tyaga, we call it. Karmanyeva adhikaraste na ma phaleshu kadachana. You can see, you are doing puja and you are doing service. Every action of mine, because there are people who say, but it's good for the yogis and sannyasis and all that. They just sit in the ashram and they can sit in meditation and they can always think about God. What about me? I have to work. I got to go to work. I got my family to take care of. I got my business. And so I have to make time now. So I got 3 minutes in the morning for Bhagavan and 1 minute in the evening. And then once a week I go to the satsang. You see, the secular and spiritual nonsense that we hear about all the time. But there's no such thing as secular and spiritual. There is only the spiritual. Why do we have to divide life into the sacred and the profane, or the sacred and the non-sacred, or the secular and the spiritual? Every act of mine can be an act of worship if I follow the very first teaching of Isha Upanishad. All this is Paramatma. Then whatever I do is an act of worship. Whether I am working in my business, or whether I am a teacher in a classroom, or whether I am feeding this body. You know, when I'm putting food into this body, that can be an act of worship. You know, many years ago, Swami Chidanand Maharaj, he's left his body now. He succeeded Shivanandji as the head of the Divine Life Society in Rishikesh. And I remember these words of his. He said, even the act of tying your shoelace should be spiritualized. You divinize everything. You know, we humanize our relationship with Bhagavan. Eh? You know, you have the Dasya Bhav, you have the Vatsalya Bhav. You know, the mother sees Bhagavan as her child. Another person may say, God is my master and I am the servant. Dasya Bhav. Or you divinize all your activities. Everything that you do, Sri Krishna Arpanamastu. Whatever I do, Prabhu, I offer it at your lotus feet. So, we can make every activity of ours an act of worship. And that is what that understanding of the Isha Upanishad, the very first one, brings so clearly to us, that you don't have to separate a life of renunciation from a life of service. As one Mahatma put it very nicely, he said, what did he say? The hands that serve are holier than the lips that pray. It's very easy to chant mantras and sing bhajans and kirtans, but that you only do in the mandir. The moment you come out of the mandir, you are an egotistic person. Me, everything is for me. But in the mandir, you can sing a beautiful bhajan. But that's where it all ends. You know, the mandirs and ashrams and mosques and churches, there should be only starting points. But they seem to be the starting and the end point. Your religious life starts there and ends there. The moment you come out, you're back to your conflict and your hating and your greed and all that. Whereas that should be the starting point. When I come out from there, I've got this whole stage to put into operation whatever I have heard or whatever inspirations I've picked up from these institutions or these temples or mosques or churches or whatever they are. You know, in this verse on law of karma, there is also a message given by the Rishi, because we all need to know, how can I free myself from the effects of karma? You know, no matter how noble your karma is, the hint of reincarnation is given here. No matter how noble your karma is, but if you are attached to what you are doing, it will bring you back into this world to enjoy the benefits of your good karma. But really, if you don't want to come here again, then the action must not be from your ego. It must not be an egoic action. Rather, let it be an action that, you know, like the sun. If you ask the sun, why do you shine? The sun will say, what else can I do? It is my very nature to shine. Do you have a motive? Does the sun have a motive in shining? Just using an example. No motive. Helplessly it does. That is what happens as you move closer and closer to Bhagavan. This body, mind, and intellect begins to function in this world without a motive. It's not what I can get. Helplessly I serve. There is no motive. There is no goal. I'm not doing it because I want to reach God. I'm not doing it for any other reason. It's just an activity that happens naturally. You know, like the mother, when the mother feeds her child. If you're going to ask the mother, why are you feeding your baby? Don't you think your mother will think you're asking a very stupid question? This child is a part of me. Do you see the world as a part of you? If you see the world as a part of you, if the world is an extension of you, why would there be a reason for you to do something? Do you think the mother is feeding her child with the motive that one day this child will grow up and take care of me? Is that why mothers feed their children? Is it not a very natural thing for a mother to do? Because the mother sees the child as her own. Do I see everybody and everything in this world as my own? Because when I see it as that we are all just one single unit, then there is no motive in me to do anything for anybody or anything. That's what happens when this verse sinks in and strikes the right chords in us. Life changes completely. The way I live and the way I act in this world changes completely.
Wonderful explanation, Panditji. Really, really very interesting. I think that we can go on and on talking about the Upanishad and especially all the points that you have highlighted. Now, you've explained to us from a modern point of view, you know, in this current day and age, the relevance of the Upanishad. My question for you now is, the Isha Vasya Upanishad, is it universally applicable to all human beings or to the whole creation at large, and how so?
You know, when Isaac Newton discovered the law of gravity, Isaac Newton was a British man. Was the law of gravity only for the British people? Did it apply only to them? The law of gravity was always there. He merely discovered it. This principle that we are all one is always there. It was, is, and will always be true. That there is no separation. We are one unit. The rishis discovered that in their deep moments of meditation. And the Upanishad is merely declaring that. So it is not for Hindus. It is for humanity. When the rishis discovered this, in their deep moments of meditation, you know what they said? Shrunvantu Vishwe, the whole of humanity. Shrunvantu Vishwe, listen. Humanity, Amritasya Putraha, you are children of immortality. They didn't say that only to people living around them or to a certain section of humanity. They said it to humanity. We found the first principle. And that first principle is we are all immortal, birthless, and deathless beings. So it is not for a section, but human beings have this very unfortunate tendency of categorizing and classifying the universal teachings of the spiritual master. Whether it was from Bharatvarsh, or it was Jesus Christ, or it was Gautama Buddha, or it was Socrates, they all gave out universal teachings. But we've categorized it, we've organized it. We organize. Human beings are very fond of organizing the truth and making these teachings of the masters, they make it into a small, petty affair. And then religion becomes a problem. Religion is a problem today because we have organized it. You're not supposed to organize it. The truth cannot be organized and institutionalized. See? So that is why these teachings of the rishis, which have come down into the Upanishads, are not for any section of humanity. It is for all beings. So you can reach Bhagavan through anyone, any of these masters. They've all given out these teachings. You can reach the center. The center is the Supreme Being. From any point in the circumference, you can go to the center. Any point in the universe.
Thank you very much for that, Panditji. You so generously shared your beautiful knowledge of this ancient scripture with us. Did you find any difficulty in studying the scripture, in understanding the Isha Vasya Upanishad as a scholar?
Well, studying and understanding and all that can be very intellectual exercises, eh? A lot of people have a very intellectual understanding of their scriptures, whether it's the Bible or the Quran or the Dhammapada or whatever, or the Upanishads. But Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa was regarded as the illiterate saint of India. But whatever he said was in accordance with the Vedas. And yet he didn't go to school because the knowledge came from within him. Books give you information. So you can get motivation from books. You can get motivation from people who talk to you about religion. You can have your head filled with all the Vedas. But if your life does not express what you've studied, then you are equal to the person who doesn't know anything. You can know the Bhagavad Gita or the Bible from cover to cover, and there are many who know that. They can quote the page and the verse, but their lives do not express what they know. Then they are equal to those who don't know. So, you know, if I may tell you, you can put all the Vedas on the back of a donkey. The donkey will still be a donkey. It's not going to become a jnani.
Very, very true, Panditji. Very true.
Huh?
Good words there. Good words.
So you rather take one line, take only this one line. You know, I'm thinking of what Mahatma Gandhi ji said of the Isha Upanishad. He said, if all the scriptures of Sanatana Dharma, all the Vedas and all the Upanishads disappeared, and only one line remained from the Isha Upanishad, Satya Sanatana Dharma will still stand strong in this universe. And what is that one line? All this is pervaded by Bhagavan. And this is all that I picked up from my studies. And I put into practice only this one line. It is equal to having studied all the Vedas and all the Upanishads. So we must be very careful that studying intellectual understanding must not be confused with an experiential understanding. Some people know sugar is sweet. There are others who've tasted it and they know that sugar is sweet from their personal experience. Lots of people can talk about God, but they are not godly. Talking about God and being godly are not the same thing. Talking religion and being religious is not the same thing. So you can read all the scriptures of the world and you can be a professor of religious studies and you can talk religion. But your life can be very irreligious.
Very profound words indeed, Panditji. So my next question, how did you get inspiration or motivation? I was going to say to study the Isha Vasya Upanishad, but I think the better word should be to experience the Isha Vasya Upanishad. What has been your inspiration and motivation to experience this ancient scripture?
You know, when you begin to look at your life, it is something that we don't do. When I begin to look at my life and I begin to ask the right questions, what are the right questions? Normally we ask questions that are relating to maths and history and geography. But when I begin to ask questions about myself, why am I here on this earth? What is my relationship with this world? Is there a Bhagavan? Is there a creator God? Who am I? What am I all about? When I begin to ask questions, then you become a seeker, what we call a jigyasu. You become a seeker because now you are in search of the truth. And you know, when you become a seeker of the truth, then the right things, the right circumstances, the right people all come towards you. That is a universal law. We've got a beautiful word in Sanskrit for that. We call it mumukshutva. Mumukshutva means a longing, and that is all you need. You don't need anything more than a sincere and earnest longing for the truth. If you've got, there's no other qualification necessary, but that sincere and earnest longing to know what is this all about. And when you have that, then the Upanishads, they gravitate towards you. Then the Guru comes. You don't go in search of the Guru. The Guru will come in search of you. Gurus are looking for sincere seekers. They've got their antenna, roaming the universes. And they pick up that here and there, and then the Guru comes when you are ready to take you to the portals of the divine. So that is what I think we all need to do. We all need to start asking the right questions. And the questions may not be answered by books. Nobody else is going to answer the question, because whatever answer comes from outside may be a partial truth. The answer has to come from within you.
Absolutely, Panditji, absolutely. Just to reiterate what you've said, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So, just to conclude on the Isha Vasya Upanishad, and I know you have already, you've highlighted some of what I'm going to ask you now to the questions that I've asked you so far. But just to conclude, for our youngsters out there, for our young listeners and viewers, how is it important to study this ancient scripture?
How important it is to study Isha. I don't think there is any study that could be more valuable than the study of the Upanishad, and Isha being one of them. I'm here thinking of this German philosopher, Schopenhauer. He studied the Upanishads. He got a copy of the Upanishads. The Upanishads were translated into Persian, and then from Persian they were translated into Latin. He got the Latin copy. And you know what he said? There is no study that I have undertaken that is more elevating than the study of the Upanishads. And the Upanishads are the solace of my life. They'll be the solace of my death. The Upanishads comfort you. Because we are living in a world of conflict, in a world of pain, in a world of suffering, in a world of grief and turmoil and confusion. You take the youngsters of today, because that's the young, they go through so much. Relationship problems, job problems, relationship with parents and spouse and young, all kinds of problems. And then the Upanishad comes there and tells you that, even this shall pass. That is the meaning of the word Jagat. Jagat means what? Gacchati iti Jagat. That which is constantly moving and going. That is the Jagat. This world is in a state of motion. It is in a state of flux. Nothing remains the same. Why do you cling to that which is slipping away from you? Sansar ka yahi arth hai na, sansar. Sansar means that which is slipping away. Why do you cling to that which is slipping away? There is something that is permanent, that is forever, that doesn't change. When everything else changes, this does not change. Why don't you seek that? By seeking which, there's nothing else to seek. Live from there. It doesn't mean you don't have relationships. You have relationships. But when the relationships change, when things change, when people change, you realize that is natural. But now I'm expecting you to make me happy. But how are you going to make me happy when you yourself are seeking happiness? How does the changing world give me that which is not changing? How can that which is not permanent give me that which is permanent? Then the Upanishad brings this to your attention. That this changing phenomena changes because there is something that does not change. Seek that which does not change. So the youngster then now becomes peaceful because now he is connected to the peace and joy that is within him. He's not now looking for happiness in his relationship or in money or in promotion. Because, this world will constantly disappoint you. How many more disappointments do you need before you start seeking the truth? How many more times must the world tell you that I am not going to make you happy? Because happiness is what we seek, don't we? And the world is telling you all the time, I can only give you happiness for 2 days. But for 20 days, no happiness. I'm thinking of what Shakespeare said, Life, how did he say it? Happiness is an occasional moment in life's general drama of pain. Happiness is an occasional moment. Isn't that all our experiencing? It's an occasional moment in life's general drama of pain. Do you want your life to be like that? Or you want life to be a drama of joy and love, you hopping and skipping your way to the end? And it's possible. It is possible. When you stop looking for happiness in the world. The world is not designed to make you happy. That joy that you look for is within yourself, and that is what Isha is saying to you. Find yourself, and then relate to the world. You relate to the world differently. So Isha will equip you spiritually. That's what I'm saying. Isha will equip you spiritually. That is why every youngster should study the Upanishads. In fact, it should be made a compulsory study in all schools. Not Isha Upanishad specifically, but it is not one of the easiest Upanishads, I must say. I mean, if I were to look at one of the easier Upanishads, I would say is the Kato Upanishad. Isha Upanishad is a little bit more difficult and challenging. But the first line is not difficult to understand, the first line. And that itself, as Gandhiji said, if that is the only thing you learn and practice, life will change. So that is what I think, Yudhisha, our youngsters need. How to have a more meaningful and life. Because isn't that what we all youngsters are looking for? I'm saying we, I'm not, maybe I shouldn't say we, maybe you all, right? how meaningful life can become. Why do I have to live with anxiety? Why do I have to live in fear? Will it work? Won't it work? Will I get? Will I not get? And Isha says, let it all be. This world is the way it is. You can't change, but you can do something about yourself. And why don't you start there with yourself? That is the message of the Upanishads.
Very inspiring indeed, Panditji. Thank you so much for that. And with those concluding remarks, my humble namaskar to you. And thank you once again for sharing your inspiring, your motivating, and your beautiful knowledge with us. I now hand you over to Shristiji.
Thank you so much, Pandit Dhanshankar Maharaj Ji and Ms. Yudhisha Balikaran Ji, for that very, very interesting interaction on Isha Vasya Upanishad. With that, we've come to the conclusion of episode 5 of Aarshdhara. I'd like to now invite Mr. C.P.M. Chunu from the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center at the Consulate General of India in Durban to render this evening's vote of thanks.
Namaskar. Greetings to all of you. On behalf of Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center at the Consulate General of India in Durban, I am honored today to deliver a vote of thanks on our 5th episode of our program, Aarshdhara. This is an online series of interaction on scriptures composed by ancient sages on India. Now, allow me to thank the following online guests who took part on today's program. Sri Rajesh Lakshmanji, CEO, Hindvan Radio, for the introductory remark that he rendered this evening. And also I'd like to thank Pandit Dhanshankar Maharaj Ji for the wonderful talk that he gave this evening. And the talk was about the Isha Vasya Upanishad. Sir, I heard you. Thank you very much for encouraging us. You raised so many points that I noted down. You know, it will help me in this journey of life that, you know, you reminded us that God is everywhere. We have to change our thinking pattern. And also we need to know that heaven is only here on earth. So, sir, I was touched. So, Panditji, thank you very much, sir. Everything that you have said this evening, it has been noted and it found a place in my heart. Dhanyavad ji. To Miss Yudhisha Balikaran Ji, a journalist and the radio presenter, thank you very much, ma'am, for the interaction also that you had with Pandit Dhanshankar Maharaj Ji. To Director of Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center, Dr. Chaitanya Prakash Yogi, Srishti Harinarayan, Sri Piyush Kandelwal, thank you for taking part on today's program. To all our online participants, we'd like to say thank you for being with us this evening. You are kindly advised to visit ICCR Durban Facebook page so that you'll be updated about all cultural activities organized by Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center in Durban. Once again, to Rajesh Lakshmanji, Pandit Dhanshankar Maharaj Ji, Yudhisha Balikaran Ji, Dhanyavad for this evening. To all of you, have a wonderful evening. Namaskar.